military anymore, because yesterday they already proved to us that they also pray. So anybody who is moved by the Spirit should please give us the opening prayer.
Our Father, in Jesus' name, we thank you, we bless you, we exalt you, we extol you, we magnify your name, we give you glory, we give you praise, because you alone are God. There is none like unto you. Thank you for the miracle of sleeping and waking up. Thank you for the joy of living. Thank you, Father, for this forum. Lord, we are grateful that you brought us together, Father, with different ideas to synergize with one another. Lord, we are grateful. We say, take the glory in the name of Jesus. We commit today's activity into your hand. You have been with us right from the first day, second day. We declare, oh God, that this third day, Father, shall be better than every other day in the name of Jesus. Thank you, blessed Father. Take glory and praise. For in Jesus' wonderful name we have prayed. Amen.
Thank you very much. So we will just go straight into our presentation. I want to believe we have it. We have the slides ready and we can shoot. Can we? Okay. So the presenter, like I said earlier on, is a distinguished member of the Institute who has also supported activities of the Institute many times. He's no new person to us in the Emergency Crisis and Risk Management Institute. He is one person who I'm sure all of you have seen here because he's been around from the very first day of this program. He is the first vice president of the current council that's constituted, and is also the director of planning, research, and forecasting for NEMA. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Kayode Fagbemi. A round of applause.
In Nigeria, coordination strategies and best practices. In looking at this, we first look at emergency preparedness, then we move to hazard. What is hazard? What is not hazard? Because many of us have differences in definition of what a hazard is and what a disaster is. And then, when we leave there, we go to coordination in disaster management. How do we coordinate? What are the challenges? What are the benefits of coordination? What are the challenges of coordination? And what are the strategies we can use for the all hazard? We will also look at some of the hazards we have in Nigeria, some of the agencies that have to manage this hazard, and what are the strategies we can use. Then we look at time permits, we look at challenges and the way forward. Okay. The challenge of managing emergencies depends on effective planning and ability to connect elements and stakeholders of the emergency response into correct strategies. There's no doubt about that. Statement of fact, if you are going to manage emergencies, you need to connect all the elements, you need to connect all the stakeholders and work together. And that is why this topic is very important, that the hazard we have in Nigeria, how do we how do we manage this hazard? How do we respond? How do we ensure we are well coordinated? One, in the topic, you have all hazard emergency preparedness. Also, what's emergency preparedness? Emergency preparedness is knowledge, the capacities, the organizational system developed by government, response and recovery organizations, communities. Very, very important. Most times, we leave out communities and think that they are not important. We have to just design the programs for them. We have to just go to do one thing for them. Community is very important. And as well as individual, individual effectively to anticipate, very important. What is the hazard a community is facing? Fire? Do they anticipate it? Can they respond to it? Can they recover from the impacts of that emergency? So those are things that all the stakeholders need to do. Now, principles for emergency preparedness. Why do we need to prepare for emergencies anyway? We want to save life and property. We want to maintain and restore life and property in the communities. Communities are critical. So one principle is you are safeguarding, maintaining and restoring life, and property. Number two, communities are critical to effective emergency management. You must not leave out communities. We must not leave out communities. Number three, preparedness requires sustained political commitment, partnership, and funding. Looking at that principle, you will understand why we have the problems with emergency preparedness. The local government, do they have the political commitment? The state government, do they have the political commitment? And then number four, we want to achieve emergency preparedness. Achieving emergency preparedness has a cost. Surely, you must spend money. There's a cost. It has a cost, but this cost is investment. They don't know it. Many state governors do not want to fund their SEMAs, for instance. And because they want to buy relief materials and give to people, that's what they see. But what if you can prevent? What if you can reduce the risk? What if you can, remove the hazard? And then there won't be disasters. So this cost is investment in life, in safety, in security, and development. So this don't think that you are just putting money and wasting it. No, by the training we have in these 3 weeks is an investment. This training we have is an investment, and we cannot quantify the effect. Number 4 principle is that emergency preparedness, along with other systems, contribute to the resilience of communities and countries. It contributes. Are people able to bounce back when there is crisis? People are not. We have seen people taking their life when they have surging disasters or emergencies. They lost their houses. They have no savings. They did not insure that house, and so they say, "I've lost everything in life." So what am I living for? So there's no resilience. Number 6 principle: emergency preparedness should be addressed with an all-hazard approach. That speaks to our topic. We should not look at fire, flood, epidemics, and look at them. We should look at all of them. It should be managed with all-hazard approach. Then a whole of society approach is critical for emergency preparedness. Don't even have anybody in the community, people that are that need support, that are disabled, they are needed. Can they People that cannot see, they are blind. Can they receive alert? People that are dead, can they receive alert and warning? Nobody should be left out. The children, the women, the elderly, everybody, the whole of society approach is important. Now, because of the time I've been given, I will jump to approaches to emergency preparedness. Emergency preparedness needs to be implemented at all levels. What we find in Nigeria is only the federal that is trying to do most of the emergency preparedness. It should be at all levels, the state, local government, the communities. So but it's non-existent. Where do we hear of New York Fire Service? It's just New York. You should have individual preparedness. You should have community preparedness. We should have local government preparedness. Individuals should, for instance, to know that you should have fire extinguisher in your kitchen, in your house. And then you have community meetings. You come together and say, do you have, everybody has. So if there's a fire in a house in your community, all of you will bring out your fire extinguisher. Then somebody will be calling the fire service. So everybody should be involved. Then operational readiness to respond to emergencies. A high level of readiness will allow for a timely and effective, efficient response. What is our time response or response time in Nigeria to disasters? What's our time response? I was coming from Kaduna and I was in an accident scene, some broken leg, broken hand, and all that. And people gathered together and taking photos with their smartphone. And I said, what are you doing? They said, I will have called the road safety call. That distance to Kaduna or to Abuja is so far. I said, okay, luckily I was with the Halos vehicle, put them at the back of the vehicle, carry them, and I went for more than close to 1 hour before I saw the road safety. They said they called. No, nobody called us. Maybe they called road safety office in Abuja. Okay? Those ones there I have not had. I said, okay, please follow me. Let's one of you join me. Let's take them to the hospital. And the rescue. The nurses were doing something else in the theater. No nurse for emergency. And I said, what is happening here? So I was looking. I went to look for the nurses and please come. Unfortunately, I think one of them just so much blood. I learned the road safety man called me that died. You know, what's our response time? Many people that should have been saved were not, because we don't even have what we call response time. In many communities, 5 minutes is too long. If there's an accident in London today, before 5 minutes, you will likely see 10 ambulances. 10! Because it has happened in my presence. Ambulances of so many people for the community, of the police, of the so many, they will be there. So we need to be timely. Then multi-system resilience. All the agencies should involve emergency management are the foundation for emergency preparedness for known and emergent hazards. Then another approach is whole of government and whole of society approach again. Very important. All the government. We must be ready to give money ahead of time, not when it has happened. Next slide. Okay. Elements of emergency preparedness. Governance is number one. Somebody must take responsibility. National policies, legislations, plans, everything must be ready. Without those, there's no governance. Who is in charge? Then there must be coordination mechanism. Somebody, you are in charge. You know, what's the plan you have for emergency preparedness? What are your response plan? What are your recovery plan? Those things must be done by somebody. And coordination. Who is to do what? At what time? Who is to lead? That is very important. Number 2, capacities. Assessment of risk and capacities to determine priorities for emergency preparedness, early warning, monitoring, forecasting, and information management is very critical. We want to know what is the capacity of the community, how many hospital beds do they have, how many nurses, how many doctors, where can we put people if they are displaced. Those things are very important. We need to do them. Then there must be communication, risk communication. Let people know what risk they are facing. Then research, development, and evaluation to inform and accelerate emergency preparedness. But I'm in the Department of Research and Forecasting. I can tell you that we are not doing much research on it. The few researches we are doing are by students in Work College, students in some of our centers, and they come to. We're not doing research as a nation on our hazard. Number 3, resources. Financial resources for emergency preparedness and contingency funding for response, very critical. I have a state emergency management representative here. Not many states. In fact, some governors will say, do you want me to give money so that there won't be disaster? No. If I give money when there is disaster and the virus relief, then people will know I have done something. They will vote for us. So funding, there's no funding. I know some state emergency management agencies that don't have people to even go to do any assessment. If they have to go, they go and buy. Logistics, mechanism, essential supplies for mitigation, response, and recovery. Then dedicated, train, and equip human resources. These are the elements. Without these, we are not preparing for any emergency. Now, operationalizing emergency preparedness. You can see from here. Let me use this. Okay? Assessing risk and capacities. Planning, implementation, evaluating. And then, when there must be coordination to bring all this together. There must be exercises or simulations. Then, there must be financing. The process for developing and implementing emergency preparedness follows an interactive circle. It just has to continue. And you cannot say, oh, I have finished planning. There must be implementation. You must evaluate and correct whatever has gone wrong. Okay, next one. Now, I now go, as I mentioned, to hazard. What is a hazard? Hazard is not a disaster. So I've had several people say, flood is a disaster. And I say, flood is not a disaster. And they say, what do you mean? Flood is a disaster. I said, no, flood is not. I did my NYC in a place called Shelleng in Adamawa State. Every year in Shelleng, in those days, I don't know now, maybe they have made themselves vulnerable. They wait every year for flood. After the flood because their houses are far away from the river Gongola there, that was dammed at Kiri, they will come to the floodplain and plant tomato, plant onions, and plant sweet potatoes and vegetables. They harvest a lot because the flood water has brought a lot of seal and weir soils. So is flood a disaster to them? No, it's a blessing. It is. In fact, if we harvest our waters that God gave us every year through this flood, we should be feeding the whole of Africa. It's a fresh water that God gives us every year. But what happened to it? They flow, and go to Atlantic and become salt water, wasted. They say, oh, there's flood. We are blaming God. Go and find out what Egypt and Ethiopia are doing now. They are trying to fight because of River Nile. Because Egypt is telling you cannot. When we were in the geography class in secondary school, they said, no Nile, no. You forgot? No Nile, no Egypt. So Ethiopia has been suffering food scarcity. And then somebody told them, what are you doing? You have Nile passing near you, and they were supported by the World Bank. They are building the largest dam in Africa with how many billions? 30-something billion dollars. They are using to build this dam. It will be like hydroelectricity will be there. They will have a lot of irrigation and all that. So Egypt is complaining. Why are you building the dam? We are going to stop water from coming to us. We are also human beings. The water passes through us. And so we should not complain of. So I'm trying to say disaster is not hazard. So disaster is not hazard. Is disaster hazard? I mean, is a flood disaster? Is fire a disaster? Madam, is fire a disaster?
Fire is a disaster when the people cannot.
So do you cook with fire in your house?
Yes.
Because if you say it's a disaster, then you put disaster in your house. So fire is not a disaster. So what I'm trying to bring out is here that disaster is a serious disruption of the functioning of a society, causing widespread human, material, environmental losses, which exceed the ability of the society to cope. Then emergency is an event or threat that produces or has the potential to produce a range of consequences and all that. Because of the point I want to make, let me go fast. Then what is a hazard? Now, you see the difference. A hazard is defined as danger or source of danger. Fire is a hazard. It's a source of danger. Electricity is hazardous. Is that not? Chemicals are hazardous. But we use them. Okay? But we manage the way we use them. So flood also is a hazard. So it's a potential or source of danger or that can bring harm and which threatens human safety when provoked. The term hazard is also used to mean dangerous, risk, or problem. Okay, and hazard can be dormant, sleeping, or die. Or maybe your fire is active hazard or dormant, whatever. But I'm making a point. Now, look at this place. Is this a disaster? It's not. It's a hazard. What happened is that the interaction of man, his activities with hazard is what causes disaster. The interaction of man or woman, so when I mean man, I'm not leaving out women because they say man made disaster. Is human made. So the interaction of man or woman with hazard is what causes disasters. Flood, for instance. Why do we have all the floods we have? Because people believe we need water. We need water. And so we want to build near the river. But God has said that he will not use flood to erase all the world again. Okay? But we love that flood plain. We don't want to travel far to get water. So we bring our houses there. Not only that, there's population explosion. Children are blessing from God. So because we continue to produce and produce, everybody is looking for land to build houses. Go to Makurdi today, areas that were used to cultivate rice are now used to build houses. In fact, when you get to those areas, you will see a house here. The next plot is rice. There are swampy areas. Those areas are not for building. They are floodplains. But because we want to build, we want to build houses, we have gone to interfere with the hazard. So the interaction of man with the hazard is what leads to disaster actually. So look at this beautiful scene. This is caused by weathering. The soft soil here, they have no correlation. This weathering, the soft soil are being washed away, and then the small one is on top. And then it's beautiful, everybody can go look at it. But somebody will decide one day, this place is good to build a house. I want to move my house near it. He decided to build a house. You see? Hazard. By building your house near a hazard or interacting closely with a hazard, it makes you vulnerable. That's it. So you now become very, very vulnerable. That's how vulnerability comes about. You are vulnerable to flood. You are vulnerable to fire in your house. You are the one using fire to cook. And so you should have fire extinguisher in your house because you are vulnerable. You use gas. Gas can explode. So we make ourselves vulnerable. And you cannot determine. And so one day you wake up. Look at what happens. You will now say disaster. Originally it was not a disaster. It was a hazard. If there is, you can tell me that earthquake is a disaster. It's not. If there's earthquake in the desert where nobody lives, is it a disaster? It doesn't destroy any crop, it didn't destroy any property, it didn't kill anybody. If there is earthquake in the ocean, not close like the one with the tsunamis we had, and then it didn't bring water to anybody, there is not a disaster. It will just form another island there. So it is this man and the wife that tried to bring their house here, and they are loving the environment. They have now made this boy an orphan. And then they will be looking for UNICEF or NEMA or people. They say an orphan now. And he become more vulnerable as an orphan, no father, no mother. Because they've exposed him to the hazard. That is what. So I'm trying to differentiate the hazard from disaster. Disasters result from interaction of man with hazard. Okay, next. Now, these are the prevalent hazards in Nigeria. You can have more, farmers, herdsmen, conflict, and epidemics, diseases, all those things. They are just hazards which can be managed, but we allow them to result into disasters. Now, major agencies that manage hazards. See, this is the response unit in the military. We have them. So, not only that, our framework in NEMA, or blueprint, says that the director of search and rescue must be headed by a military officer. So, since 2000, we've had an Air Force officer that is serving Air Force officer, that is the director of search and rescue. The president went there is air command. So we have very good working relationship, and even most of the time our aircraft, search and rescue aircraft, are flown by Air Force officers. The present air chief was one of the first pilots that flew our aircraft. Now you see how many they are. How do we coordinate them? Coordinating in emergency, very important. What is coordination? Strategies for coordinating. All these ministries, agencies, departments, and all that. The challenge, I mentioned this at the beginning, the challenge of managing emergency depends on effective planning and the ability to connect elements and stakeholders of the emergency response into coherent strategies. Without that, you cannot. We cannot. So we need to bring all these together. We're talking about all hazard. How do you bring them? What is coordination? Look at this. You see so many people there doing what? Because no coordination, everybody is just looking. Coordination is intelligent sharing of information and the frank constructive discussion of issues and possible course of action among independent organizations with a common purpose. Emergency managers synchronize the activities of all relevant stakeholders to achieve a common purpose. That's what coordination emergency is. We need to bring all relevant agencies together and work together. And but I'll tell you, coordination is based on mutual respect for the competencies and agreed responsibility of each party and willingness to cooperate in addressing and solving problems in pursuit of common aim. The militaries, for instance, I'm aware because I've worked with so many of them, they are trained to dominate the environment. Am I right? Officers? Yes, sir. They are trained to do what? But you need to coordinate them if they are not the first responders. How do you do that? Yeah. We were doing a plan on chemical and biological response emergency preparedness plan for Nigeria. And then we got to a point, we said in the red zone, the civil defense should be there because they have a department of chemical and biological emergency preparedness. And then the police said, no, they can agree them to be there, but not civil defense, because the police will not take up order from the civil defense. So we have to look for a way to solve that. So there's something already here. You know why we blame one another after responding to emergency? Because we don't plan. If you spend time shaking hands, we will not waste time pointing at accusing fingers. You say, it is this agency, it is that, it is that. No, we need to coordinate from the beginning. Coordinate from plan. Coordinate from whatever, every aspect of our coordination, and then we will not be blaming one another. Now, I continue with coordination. Coordination can be voluntary or mandated. We have voluntary organizations. We have mandated coordination. I think you know that by law that this is your responsibility. We have laws that says that Navy should be in the maritime sector, and they save life. We have laws that says this agency, that agency should do that. So we have mandated coordination. We have law that says the military must support civil authority. So then level of coordination can be from simple information exchange to mutual strategic planning. The coordination is to determine who will take on or any task when two or more organizations are to be involved. So that is the part of coordination. Advantages of coordination. It limits confusion and chaos. Of course, we see that a lot. When there is a problem, remember that this one will be fighting to do that, this one will be fighting to do that, this one is not taking order from that. Say, no, you can't take order from me. I cannot take order from you. It improves credibility. It improves efficiency, economy, reduces duplication, wider coverage, knowledge of who has what competence. Why are people and organizations reluctant or want to resist coordination? Why do they want to resist to be coordinated? You know, even in the home, there are some wives that refuse to be coordinated. Is that also? The man will say, bring your salary. He say, no, I'm not going to give you. Because she has tested the man and given the salary. The man was spending the salary for another woman and drinking and sending to his own family. So this time around, bring your salary. Let's say I'm not bringing it. There's no coordination again. Spend your own and spend mine. You must give money for the children. So coordination. Why are people reluctant? Number one, there's pride. And there's ego. Personality. I mean, what are you talking about? We cannot subject ourselves to you. You cannot. Then when there's conflicting mandates, goals, agenda, and priorities. But our agenda, our goal should be to save life and property. We are serving the same people. No matter where we are to serve the same people in the community. Then, when there's hidden agenda, maybe because I want to coordinate, so I want more money. I want to more money. I will go and tell the government. I'm the one that did it. Maybe that, or in order to get one award. So, when there's mistrust or lack of confidence in the coordinators, like the man coordinating the home, and the woman is refusing, the children are refusing. When there's lack of confidence, when there's waste of time, and loss of power, autonomy, identity, then when there's different focus. So these are the challenges why people refuse to coordinate. But if we come together and say, this is our objective, coordination will be very, very easy. Now, I'm still on it. When there's competition for resources, it happens in the UN, even the United Nations. The UN, we have UNICEF, you have UNDP, you have UNHCR, you have WFP, you have this, you have that. They are all competing to get resources from donors. And then they will not have rivalry. I think, even in the same family, you have what you call sibling rivalry. Yes, the same parent, the same parent of the same parent, they continue to, there's rivalry. The UN now set up what you call Office of the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. I say, no more fighting among you. Tell us what you did, UNICEF. UNICEF will be in charge of children, and you will be in charge of nutrition. You will be in charge of IDP. You will be in charge of refugee. Give them responsibility. Bring out your budget. OCHA now divide the money available to them based on needs. So this is why when there's competition, when there's fear, reluctant to compromise. No, this is the way we must do it. I said, let's do it. They say, no, you are not ready to discuss. Then, when there is political constitution, lack of information about coordination, fears of end result. If we support this agency now to succeed and fight this disaster, would they not say we are not needful and cancel us or merge us with them and all that? All these are possibilities. When there is lack of understanding of the benefit, then agency culture. Those are the things that make people. Your culture says, apology to the military. They said you cannot be subservient to the military, to civilian authority. No, there won't be coordination. Why are people, number 3, lack of resources to commit to coordination? Coordination requires funding. You bring people together for meetings, for discussion, for planning, for everything. You need to fund it. If you bring us together for coordination meeting, and then there's no lunch, no water, nothing, then some of the agency may not even be able to afford to come. I remember when we started, we would bring state SEMAs to come for meeting. We still did it. We did it this year. We brought them for planning mitigation of flood. We had to pay their transport and give them some DTAs. If not, they can't come because there's no fund. The SEMA don't have money. The state government said they don't have money. They have not been able to pay salary. So you cannot coordinate, if there's lack of resources. So when people see coordination as seen to delay provision, when there is donor pressure, why donor pressure? It happens among the NGOs particularly. NGOs will write a proposal. We have that in the Northeast today. They say this is what we want to do, and that you must spend this money and report before December. If you work with NGOs, you will know. Even you at the agency, they will be putting pressure on you. Please, let's do this program. Let's do this program. We have not planned another. No. We need to give account. Because if they don't give account, they will miss another funding next year. So different, a lot of pressure can cause them. Then different methodologies, self-interest. I think let's move to another one. Why this is other points. There are so many reasons. But what are the best ways to coordinate? I think this is what we should focus on. How do we ensure that we can coordinate? One, there must be communication. Clear objective. Why do you want us to be part of this meeting? And I think we have gotten very good support from all the stakeholders. In NEMA, for instance, the road safety, fire service, the military, they have supported because they know why we're out to do that. So there is clear objective. Then we are transparent and impartial. We establish mandates with government. There has to be established mandates. They know we had mandates for coordination. They know it. So before the establishment of the ministry, they know that NEMA had the mandate. Then, why the best way? Provide regular briefing. Let there be impartial access to resources. You cannot just keep all the money and expect people to coordinate with you. Then good relationship with donors. Then timeliness and self-sufficiency is very important. These are still part of the best. You provide physical process, visibility of process. How are we going to do it? Let's everybody contribute. Then accessibility to other players. Provide agencies orientation. Then ensure that it is coordination and not operation. Let me move quickly because of my time. Now, what if organizations refuse to participate in coordination? It is very possible that organization, you will invite them, they will not come. What can you do? There are things to do. Provide information. Invite to meeting, despite continue to invite them. You continue to invite them. Give them. Number 2, show positive result of what your coordination has brought about. Number 3, you can isolate some of them or ignore. Don't waste time. Number 4, you can assign roles. Number 5, very important, seek and apply third-party pressure. I'll give you an example. You invite an organization, you copy the higher authority. We used to do that. We will invite an organization, we copy when we were reporting to the Office of Vice President, we copy the Vice President. The Office of Vice President will write to them again. So you are putting third-party pressure on them. They now know that it is not just about NEMA, it is about the country. So if you invite an organization to them come, you can copy a higher authority. So that third party pressure. Then discuss with them, persuade them, go to meet them, and then get them involved. Very important. These are all things we still to do. Report to superior, then do a side door discussion. Of course, it could be personality class. How can I come? I'm higher than him. How can I bring my agency under him? No, it's not bringing agency under him. Then share credit. If you are the only one sharing credit, people will not want to coordinate. Share resources. Request mediation sometimes. Influence and encourage participation. These are some of the things you need to do to bring about coordination. Now, how do you implement decision taking in coordination? These are the way I still have something important to do. This is how to implement decision. Now, remember, if you spend time shaking hands, you will not waste time doing what? Pointing at using fingers. Coordination is a shared effort. Coordination includes coordination for assessment, planning, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation. Now, I move to the best practices emergency programming. This very important here. Disaster risk reduction, one of the best strategies you can use. There are measures that you can use to avoid and hazard, prevent, limit, or you mitigate disaster losses through minimizing the hazard, reducing the exposure or the susceptibility, and enhancing coping and adaptive capacity. So what we are talking about here is that avoidance, mitigation, transfer, retention. You avoid the hazard, the risk. You mitigate. You transfer the risk. Many of us did not know that insurance is a very good form of risk transfer. Your house is liable to flood, insure your house. Your farm is liable to flooding, insure your farm. Why? You live in an environment, you know they can steal your car. Go and insure it. Transfer the risk. You can sleep. You don't need to tie chain to your car and tie it to your bed. Transfer the risk. Pay some 150,000 to the insurance. If they steal it, they give you another money. Give you buy another car. So, or you try to retain the risk, and So these are the things we can do, and I will show this. Risk is hazard multiplied by vulnerability divided by capacity. If you see risk as this, which means when you want what you can do to not to have any risk at all, change this hazard to 0. If you remove the hazard, is there any risk? If you decide that I won't cook in my house again, and I won't use electricity, I will use solar, you are not likely to have fire. You remove it entirely. But you may not be able to remove. Okay? So because the 0 will be here, Can we do the math quickly? Put a 0 here, multiply by 2, multiply by 4, divide by 2. What? It will be 0. So if hazard is 0, your risk is what? Okay. Now, how do you reduce risk? Because it is what causes the hazard and the how do you cause? 1. Do you see this? To reduce risk, you increase what? Capacity. Let's do the math. Assuming your hazard here is 4, because you have not removed it, is 4. Your vulnerability is 4. Your capacity is 2. What is the risk? This is 4. Sorry. This hazard is 4. Vulnerability is 4. Capacity is 2. What is the risk? 2 divided by 8. Is that? Fine. Now, if you increase your capacity to 8, what is your risk?
0.
You have half. Half, then it will be 2. It will be 2. Okay? Because you have high capacity, you know your capacity is more than your vulnerability. I'll give you an example. I talk about building in floodplain area. If Dangote is to build a house he wants to live in floodplain area, how will he build it? There will be a lot of piling, is that not? He has the capacity to pile, and then for the first 2 floors, nothing, no room. And then that is capacity. His capacity is higher than the vulnerability. So let the flood come, you just be looking at it, and you can decide to put a helicopter on top of the house. So when there's flood, you just fly over and come back. That is capacity. So he has the capacity. The other way around is that you reduce your vulnerability. Let's say assume that your hazard is 4 here, and your capacity is still 2, but your vulnerability has reduced to 2. What is the risk now? 4. You have reduced. So you reduce your vulnerability. You know, those who go about in the night, I hope those who are there, you are not be going about. They use something to reduce their vulnerability. What did they use? You forgot?
Have you been going about?
You don't want to. Yes, those who go about in the night. When they use that thing, what is that thing called? You don't want to tell me that thing. And they go to people they don't know. They are reducing their what? Vulnerability from AIDS and HIV. You understand? They are trying to protect. They are reducing vulnerability. They know the hazard is there. So that is the thing. So you can reduce your vulnerability. He knows about it. He has been reducing his vulnerability. So that is it. So that is to tell you that there is something we can do. And in emergency preparedness, we don't wait only for response. We begin to use all these principles. We either remove the hazard if it's possible. You can't remove flood because rain will fall, you cannot even determine. We can reduce vulnerability. I said you can't build in the flood plain. Move away from there. Move to a high area and demolish. Okay? Then you can increase the capacity of people. When we have waterborne diseases in the community, and they have belly worm because of the water they drink and all that, what do we do for them? We give them boreholes. What are you doing? What have you done? You have increased their what? Capacity. Now you teach them how to boil their water and to stream it. You are increasing their capacity. That is the way. I know my time is going. Now, best practices. So I'm talking about best practices. We can use space technology. You can social media, very important. Now, challenges. I'm getting to the end now. Of all hazard preparedness. There are a lot of challenges. Inadequate resources it's just there. You don't have enough money, especially at the local level, at the state level. Low institutional capacity. no data, low level of DRR participation, poor implementation. Then there is weak enforcement of laws code. We have building codes in this country. Why are we not implementing it? Low implementation. Ineffective early warning. In this year, NIMET told us that there will be early cessation of rainfall, that by September rainfall will begin to go. But October we are having rain like every day in Abuja. Remember? Yes. And like every day for some 5, 6, 7 days. So the dam manager, because we brought the dam managers together for a meeting, we said, please release your water. But when they heard that there will be, early cessation, there will be, that and that, they didn't release their water on time. And so when rain started coming now, what do we have? It's now released water. That's what's called the flooding. So these are some of the inadequate equipment. Way forward, improve coordination, collaboration, and cooperation. We just have to. If we are going to prepare for all the hazards we have, we need to improve our coordination. We need to improve our collaboration and cooperation. We need to strengthen institutions at grassroots level. Then predictable funding. We must be able to say, this amount will come no matter what. All the countries of the world, even us, you don't spend all your salary, you put some aside for contingency in case your child is sick or something happens. We need it. We need provision of equipment, education and training, public awareness, and all that we need. And I believe that this is the end. I want to thank you very much for your attention, and I hope that we can work together.
Let's give him another round of applause. Thank you very much, Mr. Fagori. That was very packed. Thank you so much. So we can see that coordination is very, 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 very important. Yesterday we talked a lot about coordination, and we have continued today to re-emphasize the importance of coordination. He talked a lot about response time during emergencies, and I was so forced to be the first person to ask a question, but by virtue of this work, I should allow some people to ask questions first. I have a question. So again, he has repeated avoidance, mitigation, transfer, and risk retention. And he has given us a formula to calculate our risk using hazard times vulnerability over capacity. I hope that after now, a lot of us will begin to use that formula before we go out at night. Thank you very much. So, well, that's why I said those will have 2 questions for Mr. Fagori. Oh, we have 3 hands already. Okay, we'll take it. It's a hand from Port Harcourt Refinery there. He will be the 3rd. Prof will be, our chairman will be the 4th. Our chairman has to ask the question, please. So, after these 4, then we'll come back to the rest, please. Then Prof and Mr. Kishiro and Doctor will keep you in the cooler for now. We'll come back after the rest. So, let's start from you, sir. You can.
Thank you for the opportunity. I am Obot, Department of Policy and Plans, Army. Please, my question is in the aspect of coordination. Where military meet, they know who should lead, either by corps or by service. I just want to have an idea. In the scheme of emergency, crisis, disaster, there are rules. Is there anything on the ground to say where all of them meet, they should be the presidents, depending on a particular situation? Thank you.
Did you get the question, sir? Okay, can you just, the mic was malfunctioning. Can we replace it with the other mic, please?
My question is on coordination of agencies or signage. I said that when military meet, perhaps like Army, Navy, Air Force, they know who should lead what. Where it is only Army, they know how to sort out their leadership. In the scheme of emergency and crisis disaster management, is there anything on ground to say where all of them meet? Because that's not a time to go and plan who will lead this, who will do that. Is there anything on ground that should be a level of understanding on how to go about effecting the role that brought them there in terms of signage?
Very good question. Thank you very much. So the lady, please.
My name is Santa Yusuf. I work with Desert. Desert International Environmental Standard and Regulation Enforcement Agency. During your presentation, you made mention of people really in front. And you made mention of being particularly. I could still remember Professor Riley made mention of that despite warnings, some people still decide to be in the front. Now, my question is, as a disaster risk expert, have you liaised with the state government to see why are those people still living in the front place? And what can be done to address such issues? Because for your presentation, these are hazards awaiting disaster. So how can we address such?
Thank you very much. Is there one of my questions? I have only one question. Okay, so Chairman, please.
Thank you very much. Mine is the right of a question asked by the military report. Now, in the area of disaster management, there's a lot of old conflicts. One of the things we seek to deal with this conference or this meeting is to see how we define these rules. I will let you know, Mr. Fabio, I want to ask. Which of these agencies can we turn to be the coordinating agency? Because the right on what the Army officer asks. Because if we don't have a leader, and everybody will just be walking in silence. And he gave an example of a policeman saying he cannot walk under civil defense. So which agency? That's why we're here. What we do so that we begin to now advocate that this agency should lead this. If there's any disaster, there's anything, this agency will be the one that calling this everyone, irrespective of whether you're in the Army, the police, Air Force, and what have you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Please, let's give it to our friend from ECRMI.
From Nigerian Navy.
Sorry, please. Sorry.
Okay, so when Doc started his presentation, one of the things he mentioned is the fact that emergency preparedness depends on effective planning. So true. And the truth is, it's actually already working in Nigeria. If you go to the various IOCs, the international oil companies, it's working. Inside there, they have their processes, everything is working. It's working so well that even the communities around them depend on them for emergency response. It gets to the point when things happen, they don't call the state agency responsible. They call the IOC because they have confidence in the IOC. My point is, it's possible. This presentation was beautiful. What is our deliverable from here? We've had this discussion from day before yesterday, and today. As we are leaving, what actions do we have? Who has the capacity to take those actions? What timelines do we have? So that let's live with a sense of accomplishment, fulfillment. By next year, we won't come here and be having this conversation. Let's come back next year and have a conversation that, okay, this action, this is how fight has gone. So that we'll have solutions. Not by next year, we'll start having this conversation again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Larry. And that was another beautiful one. You remember that yesterday, after the breakout session, we wrote out a few of the points we had made. It's only very interesting that today we have Mr. Fabiri here, who is actually from Myanmar. So Mr. Fabiri is going to be talking to us as a council member of the institute, and a, should I say, regulator. If I'm wrong, he will correct me later. So thank you very much. Let's take Mr. Keshiro, and let's hope we'll be able to take Dr. and Prof. Mr. Fagame, don't worry. Questions are coming because if the pandemic plan is implemented, most of the questions that are being asked will not be asked. But because that document was not implemented, people don't know about it. And one of the reasons that people don't know about it is that when people come for an emergency meeting, just as this, they do not have a team approach in their various units, professional team approach. So people just go and represent this unit. You go, you come back. The next day, another person will go again. At the end of the day, is 0 upon 0. And therefore, you can never attain that coordination. Because it is not the person you are seeing today that you are seeing the other day, and the rest, and the rest. Now, what are we doing for this Nigerian pandemic plan? And I will also take the indulgence of the DG of ECRMI to collect that document and send it to everybody so that people will understand what I'm trying to say and it become a solid foundation for disaster management in Nigeria. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, Prof. Is it a comment or a question?
It's a question.
Okay. Can we just hit it, please?
Yes. Thank you very much, sir. Please, I don't know whether maybe you could try to maybe differentiate on that, the formula of the other thing, whereby that the assignment of the, let's say, numbers, you don't remember you took us through whether 2 or 3 or 4. Are there skills where I'm saying that maybe so now maybe 1 to 5, maybe 1 to 8, that by the time somebody is maybe trying to calculate vulnerability, capacity, hazard, okay, there are skills whereby if it is this, it will be 2. If it is this, it will be 3. I don't know whether.
Okay, so, Doctor, please,
yes, thank you very much for the opportunity. From the presentation, I understand that the cascade is NEMA at the national level, SEMA at the state level, and LEMA at the local government level. LSMC. If all these are actually implemented, what we talk about community participation definitely more or less be a walkabout. And yesterday, I alluded that, I don't know, why there is no enforcement, as it were, from the coordinating agency recognized by the country, which is NEMA. Many states have not done this, and we hear about funds not being released to these various levels. And I suggested, probably, can there be a restructuring of NEMA to become more functional? And I said, not political restructuring. Because I'm not an insider, I don't know about NEMA. I think maybe you can help us to, or me to understand more about this. Why can't NEMA really take up some of these functions to ensure implementation of the grassroots? Thank you.
The last question from Mr. Perry, please. Sorry, brother, can we just take it later? Because otherwise, we'll close the session and the question is here.
All right, thank you, sir. My question is just that, for instance, now, in our own emergency response plan, we have an airstrip where leased aircraft. NEMA is one of the people who say we're going to contact in case something happens. And even on the island we stay, we see some kind of encroachment from the water. NEMA is also on the list of those we contact. So that is something I want to pick up from here. Where can we get information around what NEMA does, how they do it, who can we talk with? Can they come visiting? Can we visit them? Where do we know what kind of resources they have that can help in case we have such kind of issues? And also in terms of, contacts, telephone numbers. We do try to contact the numbers with us. It doesn't go. So we need help with that.
Thank you very much. To make your job easy, sir, probably just take one question, give the answers, take the next one, give the answers, so that we can move, sir.
Thank you very much for this question. If there is any role for the military, yes, I mentioned during the presentation that we have about 72 disaster response units in the military. There's a big role for the military, and we have not had difficulties with them because they know that they know who to lead. For instance, the military now, in recent years, they have director of civil military at the headquarters. I am aware this was not. They also have directors at ISP in the military. All this came as a result of our working with them. When we meet the military, the military officers resident in Nema make contact with the defense headquarters, and they participate. They know where they are to lead. They know where they are to support. So we've not been having difficulty. And I think it's a good idea that we have a serving military officer in Nema. So that's it. Another question was have 2 years to state on why people still build the floor clean. I want us to know, if we answer some other questions, disaster management is not exclusive to the federal government in the Constitution. It is on the civilian needs. By being on the civilian needs means the federal can legislate on it, the state can legislate, and the local government can legislate. It's not like the military, it's not like the police that you have only the federal implementing. Now, people building at the state, they are being given C of O by the department in the state. The land they bought from the state or from wherever they buy it. So the federal has no land, has no authority to go to remove it. So the best we do is to call in the state emergency management agency, tell them what you need to do as we coordinate, go back to your state, coordinate with the Ministry of Environment, coordinate with the land survey and the development control of your state, and ensure that this is not done. But what I'm saying is that the state servers have less capacity. They don't even have money for coordination. The server we can refer to that is functioning in Nigeria today is Lagos State server. That server is doing very well. You see them on television at all time. They have a lot of equipment, they have a lot of resources, they are able to coordinate other stakeholders. So it is the responsibility of the state to stop people. We have tried a lot to bring in the governors. When we were reporting to the VP, there's a meeting called National Economic Council, where the governors are present. We've gone there to make presentation more than 3-4 times of why the state, the governors should ensure that SEMA works. That's the best we can do. And then we do a lot of advocacy. In fact, when there is a disaster in the state and we don't respond, we feel that this disaster is not a catastrophic one, it is just a major one or minor one. The state should be able to handle. Some of them will quickly write to the president, and say, NEMA is not doing anything. So, which means they expect NEMA to do everything. A single fire is on a house is on fire in Sokoto or Kano, they will be calling NEMA because they are not doing it. But in Lagos State today, there are times we have our office in Lagos, dedicated only to Lagos now, Lagos State. There are times we go there, they say, NEMA, thank you very much, we can handle it, we don't need it. That's the way it should be. But best we can. Question 3. Which agency is coordinating one? It's NEMA. It's by our law. It's in the law, and I think every other agencies recognize that. Now we have Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management, and Social Development. We're still working to see how this will be done, but no matter what they do, it's only the policy level. In implementing the operation, there will still have to be NEMA. Okay. Number 4, deliverables from here. I believe we'll all talk about it. There's a need to continue to discuss. This type of thing we're doing has also helped other parts of the world. The United States, for instance, they had fire service, they had FEMA, they had SOCIMAS and all that. But at a point, during the 9/11, they did not work very well. And so the government now had the homeland security and put all of them on that. So we don't hope that as time goes on, we'll be able to work together and make sure that there's no gap. Then the pandemic plan. Yes, we've done the pandemic plan. Just as I mentioned on one of the slides, a lack of implementation of even the plan we have. Actually, when you have a plan, you should review the plan regularly after 4 or 5 years. It needs to be because the scenarios has changed and all that. So it's even needed for review, and we'll try our best to bring together stakeholders for this review. Bob was asking about the calculation. I think any number will fit in. Any number will fit in because I'm so confident because we developed curriculum for disaster risk reduction for secondary school. And we said these are the part of the things, they can put in mathematics, we can give them to put in mathematics. If you put any number in the work, you can reduce vulnerability or reduce risk by reducing vulnerability, increasing the capacity, and whatever figure you put, it will work. And number 7, why there's no enforcement. I think that leads to my other answer. We cannot enforce anything. We don't have power to enforce. The only enforcement power we have is that if we make a requisition for equipment from you or from the private sector and you refuse, you can be taken to court. So we have this in our law that we can make a requisition within emergencies from anybody, and there's a charge, to that if we refuse. So that's why we call in construction companies. But before then, we have to meet their responsibility to support and to ensure that we're able to fight disasters we have. Where can we get information about NEMA? I think we give as much as we need. The fact is that some of the plan, I think, when you develop your plan, did you call in NEMA? Because these are some of the problems we have in developing plan. Somebody said you don't back somebody's hair in his assets. When you are developing a plan, all the stakeholders that have responsibility must be present. Maybe we are not even aware. Okay, you just know that who should do this is NEMA, and you put NEMA there. NEMA will not have the plan, so we class to not have the plan, and then we give our offices in Lagos, in Port Harcourt, wherever we have offices. We have 16 field offices apart from headquarters here. So we give the office, and then we review it. So when you are reviewing your plan, let us know who should be part of it to ensure that we are able to, tell you our capacities, capability, and even be part of the plan. With that, I think I've come to the end of the session. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Please, another round of applause for when I saw the hands that were going up, I was afraid for him, but he survived it. Well done, sir. And the other thing again with what he said is true. Any number can work in that calculation, but There's also something called a risk matrix. A risk matrix has a horizontal and a vertical scale. So if you see a typical risk matrix, on the vertical scale, you have numbers written from 0 to 5. And then on the vertical scale, on the horizontal scale, you also have numbers written from 0 to 5. On the vertical scale is like consequences or severity. And then on the horizontal scale is like the likelihood that thing will happen, or the vulnerability of the people. So you look at, there are other things that are written there. If you are picking one means that the thing is very low, it's not possible, it cannot happen, and all of that. And then it progresses. As the risk increases, the numbers increase like that. So, and then there are colors there, from green to yellow to red, to show the level of seriousness. So if you get a good risk matrix, you will be able to know which number to use to put in that formula from there. Thank you very much. So we are now going to call on our chairman, our president and chairman of council to give a certificate of appreciation from the institute to Mr. Fabio. Thank you very much, sir, for that wonderful presentation. We're sorry if we stressed you too much with the questions. They were very necessary. Okay, so we'll move straight to the next presentation, and complex emergencies in Nigeria, challenges and way forward. This will be presented by a very seasoned presenter, an all-time emergency responder and advisor. He was former technical advisor on climate change to the African Union Commission in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, and he is a council member of this great institute. Ladies and gentlemen, please clap for and welcome Dr. Victor Kodeke.
Can I seek your indulgence to stand on the existing protocol and the distinguished personages here?
Before you continue, sir, sorry to cut in. Before you continue, sir, I was actually not supposed to be the one to introduce you. So let me allow the DG to adequately introduce you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, our president and the available council members here present. Good morning, officers and officers of the Nigerian Army here present. Thank you, all our participants. First and foremost, I want to thank Dr. Fodake. He is very strong, and he is here today just because of the commitment and the passion he has for this institute. And again, you people may not know, is the brain behind whatever you are saying today. It's my mentor. It's my mentor, it's my father, who got to know in 2017 when we went for the program at the University of Port Harcourt. And ever since that time, he has been very committed to this program. He has been up and running. He has been very, very contributing immensely towards the upliftment of this institute. I want to use this opportunity, sir, to say thank you so much. Thank you, and may God bless you.
My distinguished DG, thank you very much. All glory belongs to God. A man can receive nothing except to be given to him from above. To the distinguished personages here, I want to, first of all, say a very big thank you to Mr. Fabio, though he's gone. He set a very good foundation for this. And I want to pay a very special respect to our men in uniform. You are doing great. Congratulations. You are making us proud in the area of coordinating disaster relief. It is recognized all over the world as we work with the international community. Am I lying? Let's give them a round of applause. Because this institute has seen something very special in collaborating with this Nigerian Army Resource Center. Because today, I can tell you one thing. Nigeria is part of the community that signed for the SDG that has 17 goals. Sustainable Development Goals, isn't it 17 goals? Do you know why this institute is organizing this event right now? One single major disaster can wipe off every development that we think that we have, and it will never be sustainable. Am I wrong? That is the reason why the country should place emphasis on the aspect of proactive disaster management. And you can never succeed until now we are thinking in terms of the successful role in the disaster relief, now to bring the military into the whole gamut of disaster management. From the time you think of early warning systems to, in terms of preparation, expecting disasters, and also in this, designing a very robust response mechanism, recovery, and to ensure that whatever happens, the community is resilient. That is why the Institute is here today. We have a great task in our hand. The task we have, Mr. Fakabi has already given the background of it. We need to develop a culture of preparedness. 2 weeks ago, I was in Port Harcourt talking about how prepared are we in this country. And the DG has always, he has a very fine statement he makes, that when disaster strikes, it is too late to prepare. When disaster strikes, it is too late to prepare. In the military balance, when war breaks out, is it the time you start preparing? Before a war happens, and I want us to look at disasters as a war. As a war? And we're in the right arena here because our distinguished men in uniform know what I'm talking about. When you have a war in anticipation, what do? You start what? You start having there's one thing you do. It's a 4-letter word. It's a 4-letter word. That's not the word. What is it? It's a 4-letter word. I've given you the expo. It's a what? Please, stand up, say it again. Plan. Good. You have a war plan. Can you go to war without a plan? And when you have those plans, how useful is the plan when you don't test your plan into your war games and drills, into training? You start doing what? Training, isn't it? And then you what is called simulations and drills. And you find that Operation Zaki, Operation Gorilla, or Operation whatever it is, Operation Kukankada, or the whipping of the crocodile. You start all those things. And you can agree with me that in the military, if you have 1 million troops, the number you can mobilize for a war is your strength. If in your 1 million troops you have, it's only 1,000 you have that are ready within the shortest possible time. Is that not your strength, please? Am I speaking the right language? So you're talking about mobilization, you're talking about plan. So if we come here today, and we don't give out, as Mr. Fagomi has given the background, of what it means to have a strategic plan of action, then we are already failing. One of the communique of this training should be to recommend to government that there must be that strategic national plan of action. I must say that in the past few years, I was privileged, according to my friend at LNG that said, I was privileged to be part of the response team to the largest oil spill in the world at that time. Was that spill in 1989? 1989? Who can tell me? 1989, it happened in the United States. Please, give me a handshake.
Exxon Valdez.
Yes, the Exxon Valdez was the largest spill. I was in the United States. I was an intern of the U.S. Coast Guard. The U.S. Coast Guard is the military arm of the U.S. Navy. Many of us don't know it. And I was privileged to enter the war room of the Coast Guard as the first foreigner that is black to enter their control room. They were showing me some ships. Some of the fishing trawlers that were around, that were looking them on the radar, they were telling me that as an SIV, Special Interest Vessel. They were Russian vessels that were supposed to be fishing and collecting fish, but they were fishing intelligence. Because they had special telescopic antenna and all the rest. So they were showing me that vessel there is a Russian intelligence vessel that is posing as fishing trawler. I was able to see them, and they showed me very well. So it is something I'm grateful for. Also, I want to say again that around 2007, I was privileged to be selected in the National Focal Point on Anti-Terrorism. We were meeting in the DSS headquarters. And one of the things that came up very quickly was what the questions we asked. You talk about coordination of incidents that happen. It was always to find out if we were repeating the mistake of the 9/11. When an incident happened, the first person to go there think of taking the credit. They were not thinking of a team action. So I was tasked with the responsibility of bringing an incident command system for Nigeria with all the various actors there. Never had not come up with that program. So we were on top of this. Nigeria was on the top of terrorism at that time because our method of handling the Boko Haram people was so unique that the members of the CIA in the team there said they had not recorded that success. And that is a credit to what Nigeria has done. Because when the Boko Haram were picked, they were placed in a place that it was like a 5-star hotel. They had everything they had, but it's not really free. By the time they left them for about 2 or 3 weeks, they were the one begging that they have information to give us. Are you surprised? No waterboarding, no torture, nothing. Nigeria got that credit. Let's give a hand for this country. So that was the background that I have. And also, when I came back, the background of whatever I'm saying now about a plan is with the IOC. The oil companies in Nigeria have got a template for us to copy. What am I talking about? For several years before 2003, when I came back from the US, there were always problems of oil spillage and all emergencies regarding to oil spill. And somehow, DPR was responsible in trying to bring together a national oil spill contingency plan. By the special grace of God, when I was the director in FEPA at that time, Federal Ministry of Environment had come in, we were able to bring together a document that is the first ever national oil spill contingency plan for Nigeria. To the glory of God, I was the chairman of that committee, and Minister of State Okobido signed that document. And that document gives one thing. There are 3 tiers of response. In the first tier, individual oil companies, the guy with NLNG is there. You see with us here? Has he come? Yeah, in the first tier, that is individual companies, have a plan. They have, first of all, a policy and a plan, and to be able to address oil spill that is of a limited quantity. Now, when the quantity of spill is more than so number of barrels, they have the mutual assistance from neighboring companies to assist them to bring in equipment, resources, and personnel, because they have practiced through drills and simulation how to handle such emergency. That is a message that is going through. Then when the spill is far more than what they can handle, they now call that the third tier. They have to invite resources from UK to be able to assist them in such like spill like that of Exxon Valdez. So these are just the background statement, and I want to really state that I give a lot of comment to NEMA because they have just launched a national disaster. They have launched a national, which is disaster, as they define it, that is in coordination and integration. Remember, the topic of this presentation is military cooperation, isn't it? Did they say military coordination? Let us note it. We recognize their role. So, is it according to them that disaster management is the coordination and integration of all activities necessary to build, sustain, and improve the capacity to prepare for, protect, against, respond, and to recover from something. But before I go higher on, there is a driver of climate-induced, climate-induced disaster in this country. What do you think is responsible for building up of all the scenarios we are seeing today? It is only one word. One word. It is climate what? Change. Well, I have information for you. The climate has changed. The climate has what? You can deny it, the climate has changed. So I want us to watch a short video on what is really happening with the linkage, the driver of climate-induced disasters, which is the greenhouse gases. I want us to watch it very briefly. Thank you. Are you ready? Wipe off the whole humanity. They can deny it, but they cannot run away from the consequences. One of the presentations is what happened in the Tyndale, in the Tyndale air base, of what the United States lost $6 billion US from what happened. It was their base for their stealth aircraft, F-135, you know? How many of you know? About 1 year ago, October last year, they lost about 17 of those special planes, stealth fighters. There were about 52 of them there, but when disaster struck, they were able to escape with some of them, but they could not escape with about 17 of them, and each one of them, they cost a lot. So that's the implication for the military. I will see in my presentation what the United States have done and they have hidden about what happens with climate change. Please, let's watch out. But the consequences of it is more on Africa. In fact, 1 degree rise all over the world is 2 degree rise in Africa. And it is only the poor that suffer the consequences of this climate change. That's why the president went to sign the Paris Agreement, and we also signed the nationally determined contribution, so that we can start cutting down on those areas, because the climate response, the response to climate change, you adapt to it or die, or you mitigate and make sure that the sources of this climate change are replaced by technology that is not there, because the two instruments to solve climate change problem, the two responses, you either adapt, you try to live with it, isn't it? Yes. Or you try to mitigate and stop the sources of this these greenhouse gases. And the instrument you need for this, there are two. Number one is what? Ego. Is what? I didn't say money. Finance. Let's use the right word. You need finance for it. And the other one is what? Is T. One of the things I'm holding now is what is called technology, isn't it? Technology and finance are crucial to do this. And that is why in what we are doing now, I have spent time to give you the background. Most of this information, they are going to have it, they are with you. I have a lot of information for this center to be able to give you as your background. They are there for you. I have put them in a flash. And the guy who is there is downloading them. Military in disaster, and also the need to have a prepared country. Because during the cocoa toxic waste, we were not prepared. Those of us who went to the cocoa toxic waste in 1988, we took the risk of our life to go and see what was there. They had radioactive materials there, and part of the chemicals they had there was this pyridine. Pyridine is a chemical that if you inhale it, it will make you you will never be fertile again. But I thank God that after that time, I have 5 children. But you see, we searched around for equipment to protect us in terms of what we need today in the DRU that should be in every unit of security in this country. Whether the police, fire service, security services, and DSS, is the fact that they are usually the first responders, but they need to be trained, they need to be kitted, and they need to come together through consultation so that you can have cooperation, so you can avoid conflicts. And that is what you are having right now. So NEMA has got a very good document prepared. If you look at NEMA document on disaster preparedness, it is fantastic. They have put everything there. But what is the use of a plan that is not tested? As I've mentioned to my distinguished men in uniform, what is the use of a plan that you have never tested? Is it not as good as having no plan? Exactly. So there is a national plan that should be from the public, private, and the institutions that are in this country for a preparedness program that you need to have. So I may not have time to go through some of the information that I have here, but I'll go through some of them here. The civil-military coordination is not applicable solely limited to the foreign disaster relief mission carried out, but it's particularly important in these instances. The annual cases of disasters are climbing annually by the numbers. Do you know why disasters are climbing by the numbers? It takes about 50 to 100 years for the carbon dioxide you release to be effective. So what the consequences you are seeing right now is as a result of the carbon dioxide and those greenhouse gases released 50 years ago. Now, if 50 years ago is showing us catastrophes, what will happen in 50 years' time? I'm asking us. Disaster is an understatement. I say, if right now we are having a lot of catastrophes, what will happen in 50 years' time? I leave that to your imagination. Yes, it will be a global eco catastrophe. So that is what you are saying. That you are saying here. So these numbers in hundreds and thousands are reported, tens of thousands who are killed, and hundreds and millions are affected. Now, Cyclone Idris is the thing that I would like to show you, but the link is there. You see how the military in South Africa were able to help. They were able to rescue people on top of trees, isn't it? There was a time in Mozambique, a woman gave birth on top of trees. Is it not true? Without the military, will you be able to rescue them? So search and rescue, I know military has another pattern, search and destroy. But this one is search and rescue. My brother is laughing. This one is search and rescue. Which institution has the capacity to do that? Is it not the military? So let us recognize their role and move it there. So the number of disasters has increased over the past 20 years. And now, look at disaster impact between 2000 and 2012. Damages in US dollars. How much is it? 1.7 trillion. And how many people are affected in the population of, what is the population of the world? If 2.9 people are affected by disasters, is this a good thing? What is the population of the world? If 3 billion are affected, and there are 7 billion in the world, is it not close to half of the world is under threat? Is that not true? So you see why climate change is very important. And how many people have been killed? 1.2 million. It's a program to wipe out the world. All this information are with you, and I'm sure you'll get them. The reality for hundreds of millions of people in conflicts, disasters, or situations of chronic poverty and deprivation is that humanity remains a daily struggle for life and dignity, safety, food, shelter, education, healthcare, as well as advancement. We can never have development. Let me give you one sad story that you may wish to consider. Where is our money coming from in this country? Where? Say it again. Be confident. Oil. About 90%, isn't it? Where are these facilities located? In the coastal areas. What happens today? A massive flood that is about 10 meters high overwhelms our coastal area. 60% of the cities are in the coastal area. What happens when Nigeria cannot have money to pay? Even we cannot pay for the military too, isn't it? What will happen to us? Is it not of national economic security to be very proactive in designing a contingency plan, the national economic security plan for this area that are holding our own life support system? What happened in 2012 when the water from River Benue and River Benue there, in fact, I was coming from a meeting in Addis Ababa, and I got to Olokoja. I was thinking of moving in a bus, but when I got there, I found that climate has changed, and I had to remain there for more than 15 hours. I could not cross. So what happens in the land of the farmers, covered by water, as the presenter said, those are national economic security things we should be thinking about. That's Ban Ki-moon that said it in 2012. So, a concept summary of disaster management, emergencies, and humanitarian affairs. You will see this link and watch it. I don't want to show us now because it takes us. Definition of disaster has been made by Mr. Fakobi. I don't want to take us into that. According to the Indian National Institute of Disaster Management, a disaster is an event. A disaster is also sometimes described as catastrophic situation in which, I don't need to go to that. We are overloaded with that. Am I wrong? Yeah, we don't know that. And he has differentiated between hazard and disaster. So let me say that disasters are as old as human history, but the dramatic increase and the damage caused by them in the recent past have become a cause of national and international concern. So, from 1994 to 1998, reported disaster average, how many per year? 428. 1999 to 2003, this figure went up to an average of how many? So it has been showing an increase of about 60% over the previous year. The biggest rise in these countries of low human development, which suffer an increase of 142%. The figure shows that the desolate disaster of the decade was 1992 to 2001. So drought and famine and all the rest. So global economic loss related to disaster events is around 8. How many billion per year? Yes. When studying about the impact of this thing, you'll be able to see it in the video there. So don't just go over this and go there. Military and disaster management. I'm sure my distinguished gentlemen, they're waiting to see that. According to the role of the military in disaster risk management, according to a document that is the military and disaster management, a Canadian perspective on the issue by this guy called David Kenneth. Let's examine the role of the military throughout the range of crisis situations, ranging from emergencies to disaster to catastrophic primaries from their perspective. In particular, two issues are in focus. The role of the military within the disaster emergency management cycle. And number two, the implication of militarization for crisis management. The military plays an important role in the disaster management, particularly during large-scale catastrophes, due to their special emphasis, ability, and resources. However, controversy exists on how best to place them in the disaster management cycle. Furthermore, there are other important issues worth noting, such as, number one, let's read it, command and control decision-making structures, isn't it? Number two, the use of and constraint to use of military forces in disaster management. Are they not important things to consider? Hello? You will agree with me, this is an assignment for us to look at. Because when we're designing a document of a national strategic plan of action, as NEMA is trying to do, there's a time to do that so that there will be a round table. Part of the recommendation is that there will be a national round table of military in disaster management in Nigeria. We cannot but recognize the commendable role of the ministry. The military is doing very well. It's doing commendably well. Whether the Air Force, Navy, and the infantry, you are doing very, very well. Let's give a round of applause for them. We are now calling on the military on national duty because many disasters has happened. There has been prediction there will be rainfall this year and we will be having casualties. And it is only when a prepared nation is ready before we can reduce the catastrophic consequences on human lives and infrastructure, which should not be. This year, if we had 100 people that died, we should make sure that next year it should be reduced to probably only 10. And the following year, there should be no one. When disasters strike in the US, have we not been monitoring it? What does the police do? They go around through in fact, there's a presidential message on all your smartphone you have. How many of you are aware? President can send a message to every citizen of America. Let's consider it. there must be a presidential directive to all citizens of Nigeria that he will be able to say, my fellow countrymen, the time has come for you to move out of your area, evacuate, and make sure you don't die, leaving no one behind. Is that not the slang in the military? Leaving no one behind. And it's also one for all for one. Is that not true? I was in the military by Nigerian Army. We were in Asokoro Government College, Nigerian Agricultural College. We were together there, that's when I was in the Army College, and the son of one of your former DG here, that is Hamakin, he was the son of the father, because the father used to drill us, and we used to fear him, because Baba Hamakin, how many of you know him? He late dad. Yes, he was the one we fought during the Second World War. I was put in the army. It was my father who took me away from the army. He said, my son, you won't go and play a soldier. Shooting gun. So I had that privilege. I also had a wonderful privilege when I went to A-level. During the Civil War, I was in the team of the missionary on relief work in Ogoniland, in Bori in Ogoniland. I volunteered and we were there, and my fellow students were saying, hey, Victor, you are going to die. I said, you stay home, you will die. If I go there, I will die. I better die for the noble cause. So these are the things that informed what the DG is enjoying, that I took the area of disaster management very seriously. So we should be able to interact in any session to look at these two questions that are very critical and very germane. So disaster management is there. Disaster management covers a whole range of events, including communication, failures, public disorder, terrorism, natural disasters, artificial disasters like electrical fires and industrial sabotage. So you see, there's a whole lot of things to talk about. And many of those who choose not to define the disaster can go on to state your definition. So definitions of types and levels of emergency. You will see that when you read it. I don't want to take you into that. Types of emergencies and hazards, they're all there for us. I don't want to go over it because Mr. Fagoni has already done that before. So the disasters, we say, they are dangers to life, isn't it? They are dangers to health, and they are, this thing is running. They are dangers to the environment. Now, humanitarian affairs, this is very important. Broadly defined, the act of providing material assistance to people in need has existed throughout human history, often in the form of food, material, and the rest. Yes, so that's what humanitarian talks about. According to the type of the Oxfam, the right to survive, each year an average of 250 million people are affected by natural disasters, isn't it? So I don't want to hold us too much on it. This is an interesting thing to our military as a background to why they are fighting this climate change. There was a leaked report. The authors warned of a risk that mega droughts, famine, and widespread rioting will erupt across the world. Abrupt climate change could bring the planet to the edge of what? Anarchy, as countries develop a nuclear threat to defend and secure dwindling food, water, and energy supplies. The author concluded that the threat to global stability could eclipse that of global terrorism. This climate that has changed is far worse than terrorism. You know that? Many well-informed military officers and other national security experts, along with many political leaders, and the majority of the world's public now believe that the possible impact of global warming rank among the what? The most, say it after me, the most long-term risk that our civilization is facing. So you will see that the Pentagon on climate change. How many of you have read this report? Some of us should go into it because I will give you all the information that is there. The skeptics of climate change religiously contend that the science is inconclusive and the debate is still unsettled. Backed by the coal and oil industry, the skeptic lobby has cast doubt on the human role in global warming and the environmental risk of burning fuel. Do you know why some of these people are denying climate change? You are denying their source of money making. Haven't you thought about that? Those people who are saying climate change is a hoax, find out their business. Then what type of business? Oil and gas, or coal. So those are the things we should bear in mind. As far as is concerned, the first term of the pro-oil Bush-Cheney administration, especially in Commission Technical Reform, warned that rapid climate change could potentially destabilize, as I mentioned to you, authored by this guy, a CIA consultant and former head of planning at Royal Dutch Shell Group, Doug Granda of California-based Global Business Network, an abrupt climate change scenario and the implication for United States security, so to be unimaginable. The sudden onset of climate change you will see there, the national concern there, the political fallout generated by the report, and all that is there you will see. So the British report too mentioned something of why they have definitely been covering it. So several of the world's leading figures of climate change immediately seized the study and the finding in the Observer. Could Bush have ignored the Pentagon? It was hard to blow off this sort of document. You need to see this document yourself. You know that the world is under threat. So the Center for Naval Analysis, which our president in the council has information about them. The Navy has a very critical role on intelligence and information there. So the evidence is sufficiently compelling and sufficiently great to warrant military urgent action. The advisory board of the chair also noted it. The advisory board asserted that as a threat multiplier for instability in some of the most vital regions of the world, nor will the stable regions of the world be immune to these changes. So that the U.S. should commit to global partnership and less developed nations should build the capacity and resiliency to better manage climate change. As Marine General and Tourism, we will pay for this one way or the other. We will pay to reduce greenhouse gases emission today. We will have to take an economic hit of some kind, or we will pay for the price later military terms. And that will involve human lives. Key messages from this 20 billion in 2012. So these are the cause for concern. One man-made insured losses of roughly 6 billion in 2012. The biggest were the cruise liner Costa Concordia running aground in January. So these are the things there, and you can see again that the economic losses across the whole world is there for you for information if you are writing some papers. Now, I was telling you about the military. There is this clip there. If they watch that clip, I want you to, this gentleman gone. But what is there in that clip is to show what happened when you have 52 stealth bombers that were in hangars. They were made for servicing. And when hurricane, what's the name of the hurricane? Is anybody called Michael here? Who is Michael here? You are the one that caused the hurricane, Michael. So when the hurricane Michael landed, they did not have enough time because 17 of those stealth bombers, the stealth bombers that were not ready to fly. Because in Guam, the hangars there have been hardened. The Navy knows what to harden hangars and the Air Force. They have been hardened to withstand sort of hurricanes. For the Indian Air Base, the hangars, the element didn't spare them. 17 of those stealth bombers that cost not less than $6 billion were destroyed. I have the video. The link there will show you area flight of what happened to that Air Force base. It was a disaster. So, military, please take note. I'm on your side. Why you should do something more for climate change. That is what we should do, please. So, this thing is important to finish. So, you can see another one is there. Most of the 55 F-22 were flown to safety. The F-22, isn't it? They are worth about that amount, and that is what you have there. And Hurricane Hugo ripped through Shaw Air Force Base in South Carolina in 1989. Hurricane Andrew and all but destroyed Homestead Air Force Base near Miami in 1992. Flooding from Hurricane Katrina caused nearly $1 billion in damages at Kessler Air Force Base and the Mississippi Naval Air Station. So, please, let's take the message. this is my preaching on climate change. Please, let's take it seriously. As your pastor is talking on climate change. So, that's what we have there. And the international community has since been interested. Let me go on. African leaders and climate change. This is very interesting, this section. African leaders have added their voices to the growing climate change and security threat chorus. An African Union summit in 2007, Yoweri Museveni, the president of Ghana, called climate change as an act of what? An act of aggression by the developed world against the developing world and demanded compensation for the damage. A couple of months later, this man in Abuja representative organization called the developed countries emission of greenhouse gases tantamount to what is called low-intensity biological and chemical warfare, because we are suffering it more than them. So, look at this. 15 countries in Africa are at the risk of being what? Failed states. Is Nigeria not among? Eh? Nigeria is there. You can see Nigeria there. Now, this country here in the report order are most likely to fail and provide background reports. Now, Somalia and Kenya, all those reports mentioned them there. I don't want to go through that, but I've given you where you get the information on this. That the document is about 140 page, and I've given it to you as the link for it. So, I don't know whether I've passed it, but I have given that information and the link is there for you to be able to click. This is the document there, a 140-page document. Just click it, 140 pages, that tells you what is happening. Some states become failed states, and they will no longer exist. Look what is happening to Yemen now, and not the rest. I've seen your hand. I'm not blind. I've seen it. The climate is changing. The climate is changing. So that is what you have there, and I'll just round up on this guiding document. Duty to allow facility passing. One of the core guiding documents for humanitarian assistance, you will see it there. You see duty to allow and facilitate characteristics of human crisis. What is humanitarian crisis? You will see it there. I don't want to go through it. Types of humanitarian crisis, they are there. After their objectives and definition of humanitarian actions, they are there. Center for Excellence in Disaster Management and Humanitarian, it is also there. We have brought us absorbing capacity of those countries, they are all there. Case studies. The humanitarian action is guided by 4 fundamental humanitarian principles. 1, humanity. 2nd, neutrality. 3rd, impartiality. 4th, operational independence. Right? Civil-military coordination. According to Laura Ibrahim, please permit me for this extra time, because that's what you called me to do here. Do I have your permission, please? Thank you. According to them, whereas they brought me, it says that civil-military coordination refers specifically to the interaction between what? Humanitarian organizations, military personnel, or humanitarian purposes. Whereas the broader term civil-military relation generally refers to the interaction between the military and a larger range of civilian personnel, including civil society, government authorities, rule of law, and everything. The recent interaction between Nigerian women soldiers and market women on sanitation drive, as well as showcasing to the strategic opportunity for Nigerian women to serve their country, was a brilliant, colorful, commendable exercise last week in Edo State. Let's give a round of applause for Nigerian women. Yesterday, I also saw that there was only 1 female Air Force officer in the northern state. Is it not correct? Are women not soldiers? Women that are here, are you not soldiers? Are you? Say I. Very good. So encourage them to serve, to defend their country. It was a commendable thing. So their roles and responsibility are covered by, the rules are spelled out by NEMA, you know that, by NEMA, National Disaster Plans and their related responsibility. So, you see, don't let me go through all this. One of the instruments that I want to recommend for us as a take-home pay is to take what is in the NEMA preparedness plan. That they have just launched a 15-year plan, isn't it? And if you look at the document, it recommends two instruments, Incident Command System, isn't it? ICS, and Unified Command, isn't it? The implementation of this is that if you are linked up with FEMA in the United States and have the document available to give us on they call it a National Preparedness Plan of Action. And one of the take-home fee for this meeting here today is to come up with a timeline of producing a strategic national preparedness action plan. Are you agreeing with me? Am I saying correctly? And a plan that is not tested, is it a plan? It will be followed by training, by drills, simulation that 1 month is declared every year, National Preparedness Month, in which you activate the plan, isn't it? If you are going to war and you don't test your plan, is it useful? So that is what we need to do. Doctrinally, civil military cooperation provides a military function through which the commander linked to civilian agencies active in a theater of operations. That's the document there. It is the responsibility of national government to protect and assist. All those things you will see there, I don't want to belabor us with them. So these are all mentioned there. I think there is self-contained breathing apparatus, SCBA. It has an air purifying respirator, I will move it, and it has my splash suit. That is to be able to go as a first responder to see what is happening there, so that people don't die. That is sort of thing that in this country it is